So what's up, guys? Glad to be sitting in this brand new studio of yours. How many podcasts have you done in here?
4.
Yeah, you guys are
just
just getting
4.
started.
Yeah.
But with this setup,
is incredible.
First day.
Second podcast. I wish I was the first, though, man. I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed. Next
We
time.
wouldn't have been able to do it this morning
No, it wasn't
because
ready.
we literally he finished drilling the holes. I don't know, like 10 minutes before we recorded.
Yeah. It looks so good.
Thanks.
And we're gonna have the video available so the guys can watch it too and see your guys' studio.
Yes.
This ties into what I want to talk with you guys about, which is thinking big. Because I was just telling you, I think a lot of people are playing safe. They're playing mediocre. You know, what's the bare minimum I can do to barely get by? And my limited interaction just in the past, 4 or 5 days of being here in Maine, I would say you guys are the antithesis of that.
Well,
for good or worse.
Well, neighbor.
That's right, which is so strange.
We appreciate that. Actually, Ryan, welcome to Maine.
Thank you.
Yes.
Happy
Glad
to
to
have
be
you here.
here.
Man, it's gonna be fun. A lot of synergy, and we're gonna be able to do a lot of things together as we think really big.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to that. It's funny because a lot of people asked me if I was coming up here to work with you guys.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I'm unemployable. Like, there's no company that could hire me. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but
Never say never.
yeah, that's right. But I on Instagram, I think I put a post and I said, hey, now that I'm here, I can let you all in on a little secret. And then the next post, I was like, there's no secret. I'm just up here. Like, we're here for an adventure. But to say that you guys with Origin and everything you're doing didn't play a factor wouldn't be the truth. I mean, the truth is that there is a lot of synergy and there's a lot of that I admire and respect about you guys, which is why I got introduced to being out here in the first place, but definitely a factor for us being out here.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to spending time with your wife and your kids. And
Depends on my kids.
No, your kids are awesome, dude. I was swinging them around. We were walking through a store the other night, and they're like, "Swing me up, swing me up." And I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
I actually got a little shoulder workout.
Right.
A little sore. I'm also looking forward to going through that massive barn.
It's
and
insane.
discovering some of those lost archives.
Yeah, because I sent you a video of some stuff
I know.
yesterday.
That's what I'm talking about.
I knew you were going to be excited about
Did you
that.
see that? No, I didn't. You didn't see that.
I don't think so.
I got to send it to you. Or have you come out.
He sent me a video of something he found, and I can only imagine what it actually is. There's a quick video. We're gonna actually next week's Origin HD. I'd love to do.
Yeah.
You know, because I haven't seen it in person yet. I think it was the original kind of patterns and materials Lou Hayden used to build San Antonio shoe.
Really?
I think that's what it is.
That would be pretty crazy because that was his residence, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's some newer stuff in there, but I think there's some older stuff in there as well.
Yeah.
So we'll dig through. We'll root through there a little bit.
Sweet.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I wanted to talk with you guys about thinking big, because like I see the studio, we've had a lot of conversations over the past several days about what you guys are doing and some of the projects that you have going on.
Sure. Walk
me through your mindset about where this comes from, because I imagine it's not normal's not the right word necessarily, but it's not typical. So where does this mindset of thinking big come from for you guys?
Man, it's for me, it's very easy and super organic. You have a new home down the road, a few miles, and a bunch of acreage, maybe 40 or 50 acres. As you walk through your property, you're going to see the stone walls in the woods. Mm-hmm. Pick one up and then look at all of them and think about how they did that without anything.
Right.
And for me, it's as simple as that. Like this finger right here, that was crushed moving a stone wall.
Oh.
I have a constant reminder because it gets cold when it's just, mild outside. There's no nerve damage and everything. I've moved a stone wall as a kid, as a 15-year-old, and I know what it's like to move a stone wall. But you think about how they built the fields, cleared the fields, the size of the trees that must have been here in Maine, to those fields that are behind your new home.
Right.
How long that must have taken.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
All the stones. And I think about how easy we've got it, how connected we are with technology, and just you can get anything you want at your fingertips. And that's also an advantage, right? Because every time I see somebody doing this, that means they have tunnel vision, right? Because this is reality to most people. To me, this is a tool. This is just a tool, not reality. But people are so fixated on what's going on, what else is going on in the world,
right?
Through this friggin' device. Thing.
Yeah.
If you can detach yourself, look at the stone wall, not through this, but in person, and pick up that rock, you'll understand what we're trying to do. It's that simple.
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, like going back to what we were saying before, is that we live in this world where it's just so easy to get anything, to have anything, to do anything. And then we look through this really weird filter of other people's lives, and it's not reality. It's really not. No. So how do you see this then tying into, the reality of what you're creating, and then using this technology and the stories that you're really, really good at and proficient with as well?
Appreciate that. We have a great team that handles that.
Yeah, unbelievable.
So this also allows the best storytelling we've ever had.
No doubt.
Right? Because it's just, and if you take the filter off, and that's what we're trying to do. Like, hey, we're not glorifying, like, we're not gonna pull out the stuff that is hard. Like, that's the stuff that's good. That's the meat, the stuff that's hard, is what makes this place and makes these ideas authentic. Where other people would say, "Oh, you guys are crazy." Oh, what's crazy? What's crazy? We just did a podcast, and we were talking about the canals in Lewiston, Maine, and I made a comparison. Well, I bet if you stripped out all the granite from those canals, you could build a fourth pyramid. And that was recent.
Big.
That was recent. They built those canals by hand.
Yeah.
With mules and horses and sticks. So what's the big deal?
Right.
Like, think big. Like, if they could do that with limited resources, imagine what you can do with all the resources you have right now in life.
That's amazing. I can't remember his name. Who built the studio?
Dustin Brophy.
Dustin. We were downstairs talking while you guys were podcasting, and he was talking about, I think he was taking a barn down.
Yeah.
And he was saying the same thing. It was the pins, right? So he's taking pins out, and he's like, you couldn't even slip a piece of paper through those things.
No.
And you think about hand tools and the time and the hours and the dedication and the refining and the precision that went into that with the limited tools that they had compared to what they have now.
Yeah. And it's great. Dustin, he built our first factory too. Did I tell you that?
No, I don't think so.
He's the one that designed and built that factory.
Really?
Well, oversaw it, but he designed it.
Yeah.
All the green lumber, which is 10 times heavier than dried lumber.
Yeah, true.
But he's got an interesting history, actually. His dad was in Khe Sanh, Vietnam. And you know why he doesn't hunt?
I don't know.
Because he had to hunt for food when he was a kid. His dad's like,
growing up,
go get food. So he grew up a little harder, so he doesn't find a lot of enjoyment in it.
Right.
His daughter does now. But, I think that, is that good or bad? You got like one of your kids, your oldest, right?
Yeah.
Imagine sending him out 12 years old saying,
we need food, go get something.
Go get a deer.
That's crazy.
Right now, I mean, and we're only talking 25 years ago.
And what's crazy is,
you know what I mean? This is 25 years ago.
It's not that long ago.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So there's a hardening, and I think to think big, I think that there has to be, maybe there doesn't have to be. I don't want to make a statement that kind of covers this thing, but there has to be a defining moment for me to think big. You gotta have that what is that defining moment? I know for you, well, your wife left you.
Right.
Defining moment.
Wake up. Yeah.
Hey, there's your wake up call.
Yeah.
Your wife left you. For me, I've had a few. Some of them I'm open to sharing, and some of them not. But when it comes right down to it, in life, I think once we get out of the the local, the high school, and you get into your life, you will have defining moments. And I believe it's how you use those defining moments. Do you become a victim to the moments, or do you use the moments as fuel, right, to overcome them? Because if you do, and if you choose, and it's a choice, you know what I mean? Like, we talk about mental gymnastics. We talk about, you can play all the friggin' mental gymnastics you want to, mm-hmm. but you're not really tricking yourself, because deep down inside, you know. And if you can face that, and use it as fuel, I think that is the greatest pill. That is the limitless pill.
Do you think, and you kind of alluded to this, do you think it has to be some defining moment? Because in my experience, what I've seen is a lot of men go through something catastrophic, like a divorce or a major medical battle or a bankruptcy or a job loss, something catastrophic that wakes them up.
Defining moments.
But do we have to wait? Is that a necessary step to thinking big, thinking outside of the box, expanding our horizon a little bit?
I'm going to say yes.
But in my opinion, the thing is there's a lot of defining moments in life. We've just been so comfortable at, disregarding them. There's a lot of things that could craft us in life. There's a lot of things that I look back at now that slowly crafted me to be who I am, but I didn't recognize those in the moment. Some of them could have been life-changing, mm-hmm. and because they were not, they put me on the path that I'm on. But if you just sit back and you wait for that defining moment to take that path, of course, that's not the right course of action. But usually there's something happening in your life. We live on this planet that is basically constantly trying to kill us, right?
Yeah.
And we've evolved to be more safe and comfortable over generations and generations, but it's still trying to kill us. I mean, we're in Maine right now, and the ticks are migrating north, and this is a new thing for us, and they carry a disease that can literally change your life.
Right.
Right. And we continue to adapt. And if you don't recognize these defining moments and you just brush them off, then you can't take that course of action. And certain defining moments, I agree with Pete, have helped craft me for who I am today.
What do you think separates those who have, because we all have what could potentially be defining moments.
Yeah.
And maybe they're by default defining maybe in a negative connotation as well, right? So what do you think separates somebody who takes a moment like that and decides to use it as a tool for growth versus self-destruction?
That's a great question.
It is a great question.
For me, I could see the lack of a support system, would be very difficult for someone. Like, just straight up lack of support system. Like, for me, I always had my wife, since we were kids, since we were 15. I always had her there. And I say, well, if my glass was a little too full, she'll dump it out. But if it's a little empty, she'll pour some in, and that's a good metaphor for our relationship. But some people, it's a grandparent, it's a parent, it's a friend, and some people, they're just straight up solo and they're just trying to prove something. Maybe their parent was an alcoholic, and they want to be the opposite. That's my case, right? I'm going the opposite direction. Maybe their parents are divorced. Maybe they're adopted. I don't know. I mean, people go through crazy things, I mean, we were talking last night, and my mom was telling me, we took a trip for lacrosse, and my mom was telling me, Keegan was saying, oh, some of my friends, they're living together. They got kicked out of their house. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. And my mom said, well, when I was the counselor here 20 years ago, she said 5% of those kids in your school were homeless. 5%.
Really?
I said, what?
Yeah, it sounds crazy.
What? I mean, we didn't have a whole lot growing up, but homeless.
You were homeless.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that could be the fuel for someone, and I don't know, Ryan, what the secret sauce is to make someone want to think big. I do think there are, like Brian said, instances and you can replace those pains with like substance abuse, let's say. Mm-hmm. You can like replace things to make you feel good. You can use, whatever you want to use addictions to replace.
Sure.
Or you can reflect on them. You can reflect on them and sort through that puzzle and come and make up your own secret sauce, and I think it really comes down to the individual and what type of mental gymnastics they're playing in their head. Are we going to play gymnastics or are we going to face the facts?
Right. Well, as you're talking, it's got me thinking about how you can choose to self-medicate or get addicted or channel that energy or frustration, however it's manifesting itself, towards destructive patterns and habits.
Right.
Or something that is productive, like business. For me, podcasting, jujitsu, I mean, archery, hunting, whatever it is. It's not like you're eliminating that energy. You're just directing it where it needs to go so that it can be. And it's like I tell my boys, my oldest in particular, it's like, you don't need to be destructive. Like you can take that energy that makes you want to break things and channel it towards being constructive, towards building. So let's focus on that instead.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's going to have a lot of opportunity to do that. Yeah. They all are.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure.
I'm
overwhelmed, man. Speaking of thinking big, that's a big house.
That's a big
house. Lot of property. I'm like, oh boy. I got the 0 turnout the other day, which made lawn mowing fun.
Dude,
that was awesome.
I want to come over and mow your lawn.
Dude,
maybe not the whole thing.
I should charge people to come over and mow my lawn.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the 0 turn.
Dude, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And my son was out there on the tractor and he's like, this is cool, Dad.
Yeah. Just
you're gonna think it's
be careful on the side hills.
Yeah, oh yeah.
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 Approaching the hills.
Yeah. We'll learn all that stuff, I'm sure. Hopefully not the hard way.
I had a friend who decided once when we were kids, he lived through the woods up, maybe like a mile up through the woods. Mm-hmm. There wasn't any trails. So he decided this is Dan, he was going to take his tractor to my house. Yeah. The tractor ended up halfway into the woods buried.
Oh,
like a real tractor, like a real old tractor with the big wheels.
Yeah.
And your kids will be able to experience the same thing.
Yes, they will. Yes,
and it's one of those things you got to like let them do it.
Yep.
Hey, go figure it out. Go figure out how to get it out.
Right. I just told them stay away from buildings and stay away from my vehicles.
Yeah. Is that their rule set?
For that it is.
Buildings and vehicles.
Well, for now, I mean, we've never had a tractor or anything. I mean, we've had side-by-sides and things like that they rode around on, so they're somewhat familiar with it. But Brian, you brought up something interesting. You said we live in a world that's trying to kill us, right?
Yeah.
And what was interesting about that is I was talking with Lee Ireland, and he was talking about the property itself. And he said at one point we had all of this cleared out, and it was significantly more than it is now. And he says, if you don't manage it, nature will take it back. You got to manage it. And if you don't, it's not going to take very long for her to reclaim what was once hers.
Facts.
It definitely will not. The state of Maine was all fields at one point.
Yep, 90%.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
because we're, wooded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's the most forested state in the U.S.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They call it like a boreal wilderness, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one place we'll have to go up to the Allagash.
Oh, yeah.
You'll have to come up to that. And it's, it's like taking... Well, as you know, you come to Maine, you come to Western Maine, it's people like, the middle of nowhere, boondocks or whatever.
This is it.
The next step is you going to the Allagash. Like there's...
And is that north?
That's north.
Yeah. Okay.
You got to drive a few hours north. You get to essentially a toll road, which becomes a dirt logging road. And then you drive, 5 more hours further into nothingness.
I've never been.
That's crazy. We'll do it this year.
If you want to do an
life changing,
you need to do an Allagash event.
Do it up there.
Holy shit!
They got to be ready.
I'm intrigued. That's what we want.
They got to be ready though. Well, whoever's going.
Like this ties
capable.
into it. Thinking big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I could do an event at the property.
Right.
And we will.
Mm-hmm.
But
what if you gave yourself no out?
Yeah.
Give yourself no out. That's the Allagash. You aren't coming out. You have to go down that river.
My family, the men in my family go annually. And last year or the year before, I want to say it was the year before, my brother went in. He wasn't feeling so great. and they basically had to carry him out. He had a blood clot in his up in his upper leg near his groin, and his whole leg wouldn't move.
How did he get that? From
They
getting
had to
hit or what?
get him out. No, it was just genetic.
Oh, just something happened.
And it just happened to go from painful leg to I can't really use my leg.
Holy crap.
I mean, literally in the middle of nowhere. There's no cell service. You're not calling anybody.
So they rushed. Was it white water? Is it rafting? Is that what it is?
Certain areas are. They run the lake where there's nobody. You get a canoe, so you got to go in, and you drive all the way up there.
Well, you're talking. I'm going to pull it up here. So I'm just going to put in.
Oh, you just wanted an excuse to use the TV.
the Allagash Wilderness Waterway, right?
So there's a few different things. You can do the waterway, which is you kind of put in up here and then you go downward.
Yeah.
Which I haven't done yet. And then what we would do is we would go up to a pond, and you'd have to carry your canoe, I don't know, a couple 100 yards through the woods and all your gear, and put in this pond, canoe across the pond. There's an outlet. And then you would go down that outlet about 5 miles to actually about 3 miles. Then you hit another stream that's a little bit, this outlet, there's points where you got to get out, drag your canoe.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you hit the stream. Right. Yeah. And you go downstream for a few more miles, and then you get to Allagash Lake. And there's no other way to really get to Allagash Lake.
Other than through that outlet.
Yeah. There's a pathway that you can do it. And I think I want to say 2 miles in, you got to carry your canoe and your gear. But that's the only way to get to that lake.
So you guys do that every year?
We normally do. The last few years have been the same week as the immersion camp.
Oh yeah.
So I've had to prioritize the immersion camp.
Yeah.
But it's truly an awakening experience being out there.
Oh, I bet. I mean, I did. The first time I ever came to the Northeast and spent any amount of time here, I should say, was for the Spartan Agoge, which is in Vermont.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the Spartan race?
Well, it wasn't a race. It's called the Agoge. It's a 60-hour endurance event.
Mm. Holy crap.
And so
by yourself or with
a team. We had 8 to 10 people, depending on how many guys stuck around
and how many did.
I think we started, without knowing exactly, I want to say we started with 120 or 130, and I think we got down to 80 or so, maybe.
Wow.
Maybe 90. Yeah, we lost 30, 40 people. Yeah. But I got introduced that way, and so it sounds similar to what you're talking about, is like the woods and being in the river, and it's amazing.
That, and I like to fish, so you can actually fish. It's not overfished.
Right.
So you can actually fish.
Right.
It's legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to do a lot of cool events up here. Let me ask you this when it comes, or did you want to show something here?
This is the Allagash, just so you can get a visual on it. And yeah.
So this is the lake here.
Don't you start from one end, right? And then somebody has to drive your vehicle back down.
So that's if you want to do the waterway, which is the waterway,
which is what you'd want to do.
Yeah,
for sure.
Of course.
Do an event, because once you start, there's no coming back.
Right.
And
so how do you get out? Oh, here's the route right here. It actually shows the route.
That's right.
Oh, wow. So do you go back the way you came?
No, you camp each day at a different site going down.
Yeah. That's cool.
This is right up your alley.
This sounds cool.
And how many days is it, Brian? Is it a week?
I think it's close to a week.
That's cool.
And once you start, you don't come back.
Right. You got to go.
And you have to, what do they call it when you pick your canoe out of the water and walk through, like hike through, whatever they call it? What's the word for that?
I know what you're talking about. I'm spacing it right now.
Okay.
I don't know. Just ruck, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. So how do you, when we're talking about doing big things like this, right?
Yeah.
Or things within your business even, you're taking risks, right? There's capital. I don't know, you're looking at me like you think it differently than risk. So I'll let you elaborate that on that first.
I mean, what is risk? You know what I mean? Like, well, let me ask you, like, what scares you in life? What things scare you in life, truly?
That's a good question. I think a lot about, personally for me, just blending in, right? Being mediocre. That's something that I'm not interested in doing. Mm-hmm. I'm scared of not being the best father that I can be for my kids. That's constantly on my mind. That's about it. I mean, I'm not worried about food or a roof over our head.
Okay.
Or
think bigger. I mean, are you scared of, or
ticks.
what would put you on, what would severely put you on your heels?
The only thing I could think of that would put me on my heels is some debilitating medical condition.
Thank you. That's it. That's it. Your wife, yourself, a child,
Right.
sickness, and death.
Right. Yeah.
So what is there to be scared of? If you distill it down, sickness and death.
Right.
And not being able to provide for your family,
Sure.
or not having your significant other, or that, again, we go back to that support system, a healthy support system, whether it's physically healthy or emotionally healthy, to support the dream.
Mm-hmm.
If you have those things, why aren't you unstoppable? You've got limited time, limited time. And we've got a solid 40 years to do something epic, because you're not really doing anything until you're 20. And at 60, you're trying to enjoy what you've been part of. And so those 4 decades of opportunity, why not? Like, I look at this one as I'm in my second decade of opportunity, year 7. The first one has passed. The recession killed it. I'm in number 2, year 7. Man, I hope this is my next 3 decades of opportunity. We're a friend now that you introduced me to, Kip, one of the co-founders of Under Armour. He said in a text message, he said, the last 20 years at Under Armour, I've lived 10 lifetimes. Dude, I know exactly what he's feeling.
Yeah, I bet.
The last 20 years, I've lived 10 lifetimes. That's someone who's definitely getting after it, but there's risk in everything, and people use this as a cliche things. Well, flying is safer than driving, Well, yeah, it is. And you use these cliches for what purpose?
I don't know, talk yourself into things or out of things, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But what are you really scared of? Sickness and death.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got an idea what happens after that, and you're comfortable with that, well, then what do you have to really lose?
Right. I agree with you. I mean, I've experienced this a lot because people have asked me, why are you coming out here? Why not, man?
Why not?
Like, worst case scenario, we get out here, we spend a couple of years, we don't enjoy it.
Right.
We move. Like, it's not,
right.
There's no risk in what we're doing.
It's crazy to people though, right?
It's crazy. And it's crazy that it's crazy. Like, to me, I hear it. I'm like, well, what's your problem?
Right.
You're asking me why. I'm wondering why not? Like, you're going to die and you're not going to have done anything. And you're going to have to look back on the past 40, 50, 60, 70 years and say a bunch of times, remember when we could have done this and I wanted to do this and I wanted to do that. And you didn't do any of it because you were afraid or talking yourself out of it the whole time.
Right.
Afraid of nothing.
So where's the real loss? The real loss is not having done it, or at least not having tried it.
Sure.
And that stuck with me hearing that as a kid. Wish I could have done this, or we should have, okay, I'm thinking like, well, why not?
Mm-hmm.
You can lose money.
Yeah, but you can make that back.
Right. You can lose possessions. Well, so what else is there?
The only thing that you really can't get back, is your health.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, those are the things you can't get back. So as long as you're living a healthy lifestyle, you're making the right decisions and you're doing the things that you should be doing, then you shouldn't be afraid to take risk, as we mentioned,
I wonder if it's a product of, or at least a part of the equation of, we talk about possessions, for example. Yeah. You could lose possessions. I wonder if you're more likely to take, we'll dub it risks because that's the term people know, right? If you have been in that position before. Like, I've been broke before.
Yeah.
I have no problem being broke.
Definitely.
I've been without stuff. I got no problem being without stuff.
Definitely. I remember talking with one of my friends, Noah Pillsbury. And he said to me once, he had a big contracting company. He sold it. made a bunch of money, got divorced, lost all the money.
Yeah.
And he came up, and I think it was in one of his down times where he was actually working for somebody, trying to figure out what to do with life. And he said, hey, once you know how to make money, you always do. Mm-hmm. You always do.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get my life together first before I go tackle it again. And he has tackled it again. And he came up recently in his company. Now his revenue's back up to $10 million a year.
Of course,
he just you got to get you right. You know what I mean? Before you can go tackle something. And I think that if you're not right, if you're not mentally, even physically, but if you're not emotionally there, well, then it is a risk. Mm-hmm. But if you are emotionally there, well, then it's a calculated risk.
Right.
You're going to fail? No, you're not going to fail. You're going to make a tuition payment. You're going to have hurdles, speed bumps, a wall to climb. But the only true end is the end of life.
Right.
It matters how many times you want to scrape yourself back up and keep going.
How do you know what to pursue, though? I mean, we talked about this a couple of days ago with the boots and the jeans, and there's a billion other things that you could choose to pursue. Why choose these things over something else?
I mean, what gives you chills and gets your blood flowing?
I was going to say passion.
Passion.
Where does your passion lie? It doesn't matter how motivated you are, or how skilled you are. If you're not passionate about what you're doing, you're not going to be as good as you could be doing something that you're passionate about.
Sure.
And America is the greatest place to express that passion because you can literally do anything, and you've got people who probably listen to the podcast. Well, I work at this sucky job, and, I'm stuck in middle management, and I make a pretty good wage, and I got a wife and kids at home, and I don't want to, sacrifice their well-being and the things they have and the things I provided and this and that. And okay, well, that's cool. That's a choice too. And that's absolutely fine. It's absolutely fine. But don't tell me you couldn't also do something else.
Right.
If you chose to.
Right. I mean, I get that a lot, even with the podcast, because I've been doing this for just over 4 years.
Yeah.
And a lot of people reach out, hey, I want to start something similar. I want to do something similar to what you're doing. How did you do it? I'm like, man, early mornings, late nights.
Yeah.
Because I had a 9 to 5. I was working.
Yeah.
Well, how did you do both? What do you mean? You just do both. You find the time and you sleep less and you make it work. It's not permanent.
Right.
But that's what it requires.
I think that's a little bit lost, and I think it's because of that tunnel vision.
Well, it's immediate gratification. It's you're pointing at your device right now. It's
on-demand lifestyle.
That's what I'm saying. Somebody sees somebody's success, and because they don't have face-to-face personal interaction with that individual, like I know you guys, I know to some degree some of the struggles that you've been through personally and professionally as well. But if I'm just following you on Instagram, I don't know any of that stuff. All I see is you guys have the Midas touch, right? Everything. No.
That's funny. Yeah.
You laugh because it's not true.
Right.
But if all I see on social media is all the highlights, well, I think, well, what the hell's wrong with me? Everything these guys do turns to gold and everything I do falls apart. That's because we don't have face-to-face interaction.
Yeah.
And we don't see other individuals in the trenches and the years and years of effort and toil and setbacks and failures that got them to the point they are right now.
Exactly. And everybody that's had success has paid the price. They've all paid the price. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people don't want to pay the price.
Well, I agree with that.
I think that's key to this conversation is thinking big. Well, how can I think big when I'm doing well? It's not that you're thinking small, wanting to support your family and support that lifestyle. That's not small thinking. That is you're actually sacrificing maybe some things you want to do in your passions for the greater good of your family.
Right.
That's cool too.
Right.
That's most everybody, and I don't want to say that's not a good thing to do. That's a wonderful thing to do. I have caused my wife gray hair. I have sacrificed time with my children. I try to make every sporting event, but I'm going to miss 1 or 2 every year. I have sacrificed events, and finding that balance, has been difficult. Mm-hmm. It's been super difficult. Most people don't want to do that. Most people don't want to do that, but it is within everyone. It is within everyone.
Do you think? I don't know. I honestly
I'm going to tell you why. Because we're no different than the first ones. I'm strictly talking about America right now. We're no different than the first ones.
Yeah,
you
but
didn't
of
have
the
a
first
choice.
ones, there were those who just wanted to get by as well.
But they didn't have that. They didn't have the option to just get by when we were building the foundations of the country. You fought in the wars. You helped build the factories. You helped make the bricks. You made the footwear. You wove the fat. Like, you did everything that this country needed in the Industrial Revolution. Whether you were a farmer or a factory worker, whatever you were, you didn't have a choice. So
let me ask you this, though.
Sure.
Was that a byproduct? Because some people didn't even make the trip. Right?
Sure.
So was that a byproduct of their ancestors who came before, who ingrained that into them, that, hey, we fight, we toil, we labor, you see what I'm saying? Versus those that I'm not going to America, this new, it was American. I'm not going to this new place on this new adventure. That sounds ridiculous. I'm staying here. I'm comfortable here.
Well, I mean, at some point in life, at least once in your life, some type of survival mechanism is going to kick into your brain. I don't know what chemical gets released.
You mean like adrenaline?
Is it adrenaline? Or is it serotonin?
When you're put in a fight or flight? Not
fight or flight. Let's say fight or flight. What is it? Is it
essentially it's adrenaline?
Okay.
You're either gonna
live or you're gonna die.
You have,
right?
the stress, like cortisol and things like that.
Okay, exactly.
Stress, yeah.
So everyone is going to be put into that category at some point in their life.
No doubt.
I just like to force it.
Why?
Because it feels freaking good, man. I enjoy it.
I don't think
I enjoy it.
But is that unique?
Is it? Because
I don't think everybody enjoys it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, man.
Okay,
I know there's plenty of people who can't, they have the slightest sign of adversity and they blow up.
Why do people bike? Why do they hike? Why do they run? Why do they do activities? I mean, it's the same thing. They're trying to get the same type of release. They're trying to get that release through activity.
What's the balance, though, between... So I think human nature is probably to find better, more efficient, effective ways of doing things. And so that's like a level of comfort and complacency, right? Like, I want to do this as easy. I'm lazy. I want to do this as easy as possible.
Yeah.
Versus I want to push hard. And yeah, I'm going to look for an efficient way to do it, but I'm going to go above and beyond what is expected. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I do see what you're saying. And I think that instinctually we do seek comfort.
Right.
Like, we seek to innovate and drive technology to make things easier, more comfortable. I can put on my iWatch and I can
or your
look at this podcast table. We had to
man.
cut this table a certain size so we could rest our arms on it.
Right.
And articulate the freaking mics.
Yeah.
Right. And you already had mics, right? And you already had a place to...
We want them to be bigger and better. And,
right.
More comfortable, more natural, like this.
So what drives that?
We talked about, we talked about wash off the comfort.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
There was a point where, I think it was last year, probably towards the third quarter of last year, I talked about it on our podcast, and I said, I kind of woke up one day and I was like, oh, this is good. Business is good. It's growing. Everything's smooth, too smooth. It's comfortable.
Right.
And I stopped myself and I was like, whoa. That's not cool. Like, and I said, wash off I felt like I needed to wash off the comfort. It's dirty.
Why do you
it's a
feel
dirty feeling.
That's necessary? I think that's the point I'm getting.
I'm getting what you're putting down.
I'm on page with you guys.
I can tell you exactly why. And it's because there's no growth in the comfort zone. There's no growth. If you're comfortable, you're not growing. If you're comfortable as a company, you're not moving forward, you're not growing, you're not expanding, and you will die.
I think I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think where most people come from is they think to themselves, well, I don't want to rock the boat because I don't want to fall out of the boat. Right? I just want to stay in the boat. But what they don't realize is that if they stay on the boat, it's going towards a waterfall and they're about to fall over that ledge. They don't even realize that yet. They just want to stay in the boat. It's like, maybe this route's not the best right now.
Right.
Like, it's the same reason, and I'm fascinated by this. Women, and I guess men too, who stay in abusive relationships.
Yeah.
Like, they know it's bad for them. Mm-hmm. They know it's abusive. They know it's a dangerous situation. they may even have kids in the situation, and yet they go back into that situation again and again and again. Why do they do that? Because the fear of the unknown is greater than the pain of what they're currently experiencing.
Well, exactly. And I can tell you that firsthand, because we have helped folks, women in our factory who have been in those relationships and help them get out. And a big part of it is control, is feeling like you're not someone without, let's say, that person in that abusive relationship. Maybe you're not there until you don't feel like you're there intellectually. Maybe you're not there financially, and you don't have the support system to help. And it goes right back to my original statement. For me, it's having some type of support system. When you ever heard the phrase, the right words can convince kings? You ever heard that?
I haven't heard that.
I think it might be actually a biblical term, but the right words can convince kings. And it's true. Like when you're helping someone, the right words you can see trigger that person. And again, I'm talking about I was saying adrenaline or whatever it is, but you can see when someone physically changes, like, oh, I can do this. Mm-hmm. Oh, I can do it. And maybe that's not fight or flight, but I know we've helped a few folks get out of bad relationships.
I think what you just said is the exact key right there. And you mentioned people staying in these bad relationships. And the one thing I hear from these that happen to be women who get out of these relationships is, I didn't know that I could do it. It's like the fear of not knowing that they could do it trumped the fear that they were in living in that household with that abusive person. They were so scared of failing, getting away, they didn't even try.
And for one of those women, right, to get out of that relationship is like building a massive company for an entrepreneur.
Yep.
The feat
just
is
daunting.
Mm-hmm. Dude, the feat is as great. The feat is as great. The way they had to mentally process and push forward through the struggle to be able to do that is just, I would say it's even greater. Because it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying for them. So for them, that is thinking big. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we can pigeonhole that statement.
No, you don't want to discount that.
No, definitely don't want to. For them, it is thinking. It's as big as they could ever think. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great analogy to thinking big isn't maybe not just building a company, or thinking big is taking a bunch of people up on the Allagash and trying to survive.
Yeah.
That's thinking big.
Yeah.
So it depends. It's relative.
How do you know, for you, since it's all relative for you guys, how do you know when it's big enough? Like, well, let's take the podcast studio because we're sitting in there. Yeah. You probably could have done more and bigger and grander and greater. So how do you know, like, oh, this is where we want it. This is the level we want it to. Is it just a matter of resources? Is it a matter of effectiveness?
I just think it's a matter of vision. How big? I said something once on our podcast. I don't know if you remember this, Brian. You know why I love science fiction movies? Because it came from someone's mind. Mm-hmm. And I think anything that comes from someone's mind could be possible. Why else would you be able to think of it? Why would you look at the heavens? Why would you look at the stars? Why do you look out and think of these crazy, crazy things? It's how technology is built. We want to build. We want to create. And it's limitless, really, what our brains can gel together. And I feel like if your brain can gel it together, well, your hands can gel it together too. And so it's a matter of, what do you have for vision? What is your vision? Because it's going to start with that. And you got to have motivation, and you've got to have some naivety. You got to be naive to believe you can put what's in your brain out there.
Yeah.
But the only one stopping you is you. It's really the case. The only one stopping you is you.
Yeah.
So
I like that you said naive. I've used the term a little delusional in the past. Maybe even a lack of self-awareness to a degree, right? Like, I don't know if it's self-awareness or you see
I
what
don't
I'm
like
getting
delusional though,
I know.
because delusional means you're not on planet Earth.
Right. You're not.
Naive means you can do it against the grain because everyone's saying you can't.
Right.
That's different. Oh, you're naive. Well,
Yeah,
no,
no,
I'm
that
not
makes
naive.
sense. I like that distinction. And it is because you're not ordinary to other people,
Right.
right? So they look around and they think, oh, why are they doing this? And I don't understand. And he doesn't need that, or he doesn't need to do this. And people can't fathom it. They can't wrap their heads around it. You were talking about that when you were trying to secure some funding early in the business.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand. They just couldn't understand. I have basic conversations like this every day. People ask me, what do you do? I tell them, what are you talking about? I don't get
I
it.
have people ask me that about you.
Right.
I actually have many. So what exactly does Ryan do?
Yeah. I don't even like answering that question anymore.
Right.
Because I can't, what do I do? I talk. And, and you get paid for that? Yeah. Pretty well, actually.
Right.
But people can't fathom it. And it's weird because rather than trying to understand, and that's what we should be doing. Like when I see somebody succeed, like this whole, like Jay-Z, I think was just labeled as a
rapper?
as a billionaire, self-made billionaire.
Okay.
And people are like, well, he had this and this and that and whatever, all kinds of reasons. I'm like, dude, forget about all that. Just think about how he did it.
Yeah.
Like, what about him? What about his personality? What about his skill set? What about him allowed him to get in that? You don't have to like the guy. You don't have to think he's a moral person necessarily. There's something about him that he did, that he created. Like, we should be trying to figure that out, not, oh, I don't get it, I'm out and check out.
Absolutely, I agree.
I think a lot of times you're going to find with people like that, and I can totally relate. You think they're running towards something when indeed they're running from something.
Other individuals, you're saying?
Yeah, other individuals. I mean, and I'll say it about me. Like I'm really not running towards, like when you say not what's like enough, like, well, I'm running away from something. I'm not running towards something. I'm running away from something, you know,
What?
and well,
You're talking about what's driving you?
yeah, that's where the drive comes from. And I know you're the same way.
Yeah, and there's a similar perspective, and that's the reason why we've, I think, naturally, organically aligned on a lot of different things. And I've just, for me, and I think you would say the same, when you've come from nothing, you have a lot to, I look at it as like a superpower. Like I'm thankful now that I didn't grow up with a lot. Yeah. You know, I grew up a lot more privileged than a lot of people, but I didn't grow up with a lot. And Pete was the same way.
Well, we like joking around like, hey, did you have the government block of cheese? Oh, yeah.
like, yeah.
Oh, I had that cheese in the house. You know that, the big cans, you know. Would you have your cereal? No sugar cereal. Just O's, man. Just O's.
O's.
No, not Cheerios. Just O's. You know,
No cheer in your O's.
Yeah. I give him shit because he had
there's
honey.
no cheer. Yeah, I had. My mom splurged on honey.
Like, oh, okay. You had honey.
And we had it so friggin' good. You know, so good compared to a lot of people in the world. You go back to kids being homeless. Like,
Yeah.
I was never homeless. I had a
Exactly.
home. I'm still running from it though.
But
You
you
know?
didn't think that at the time, or did you?
Always.
That you had it better off than other people?
Oh, at the time, my mom and my dad, for that instance, used to, I think it was my dad who used to say, there's a lot of starving kids in China.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That we got that when we had to finish our meal.
Yeah. Finish the meal. I was so stubborn though. I remember one time we were at a friend's house, and this is kind of a side story, and they had made spaghetti, and they had 9 kids. It was the Walshes. You remember you went to school with them?
I did.
And we had 4, so it was a bunch of kids. So they made this huge spaghetti meal with the sauce, and they made all the kids sit down and eat. And something tasted bad, and we were going to watch Superman 1 for the first time ever. And I was just a youngin', and maybe 9 years old, 8 years old. And Mrs. Walsh was like, "You're going to eat that food." And my mom was there backing her up. "You're going to eat that food, or you're not going to watch the movie." And I said, "Well, I'm going to sit here." with you because I'm not touching it. And all the other kids were like gagging it down. All the other, what was there? 9, the 13, all the 12 kids were gagging it down. I sat there and for hours until finally, like, he's actually not going to eat that food. He's actually not going to eat that food. And I got in trouble for it. And finally I said, why don't you taste it? And they tasted it, and the sauce that was on it had gone bad. Oh. And they were like, oh my God. Like, my mom was like, that is like horrid. And I was like, thank you. So for watching Superman, I want to watch friggin' Superman so bad, dude. So bad. But, you know, I think some of it, you know, comes down to like, are you going to assimilate? I say all my siblings and I say everybody else at that dinner table, they assimilated, you know, because they were commanded to do something.
Right.
And for me, I never really enjoyed authority too much. And I mean, that's just, you know, fundamentally, I never really enjoyed authority. And I always felt from a young age that if you can look up into the heavens and you can see something, I really believed when they told us in school, you can do anything. I believed it. When they said you can do anything in life, I was like, that's badass from a young age. And I've never stopped believing it. And I never will. You can actually do anything. Might have to go against the grain. You might get looked at like you're weird or crazy, but you really can achieve anything.
Do you guys think, coming from your background, what you're talking about now, and I've known a lot of successful people that I think are this way, that you have any sort of chip on your shoulder or feel like I've got something to prove, and that's what's driving?
I always do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Growing up, I watched my father. He was very much business minded. He owned a successful business for a few years in the early 80s before I was born, and something happened to it. It was gone by the time I came around. And by the time I was born, we had nothing. And I watched him try and restart different things over and over again. And it allowed him to do two things. One, fail a lot and have me learn from it. And two, be there for me growing up way more than he was for my brothers. And he was older at the time. I was the youngest. And he was able to coach and be a community leader. But we didn't have a lot growing up. And it showed me what I wanted to be also, but it showed me what I didn't want to do. And then that was to fail. And that's been it's been a driving force for me, for sure.
And I'd say, you know, to add to that, like, if the chip as you go through life, if you're trying to think big and do things big, at first it's light, right? It's got weight to it, and it gets heavy, and it really becomes just a straight up weight, not a chip necessarily, because as you create momentum, you know, you're carrying weight, you know, and you're constantly proving to yourself, right, your own words and your own ideas. Again, we play the mental gymnastics, so you're constantly proving to yourself these ideas are possible. And it starts out maybe trying to prove it to everyone else, just to start, though, to start. But then it becomes more about, well, am I gonna buy into what everyone else is saying, or am I gonna actually buy into what I think, what I believe? There's eventually got to be that real buy-in, and that chip becomes less of a chip, and more of a confidence. You get into more of a stride, you know, and a lot of reflection, and you learn how to be humble through sheer force of nature.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely starts out that way for most people.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I mean, I look at my situation with my father being out of the picture, and I think to myself now, where that's such a priority for me as a father, that comes from not wanting to be like that. Like, I'm going to show
Was your dad an alcoholic or?
No, not I mean, he was into drugs
picture.
and alcohol and not in the picture. Yeah. So I didn't have that example. I didn't have that around. And now I refuse to let that happen for my kids.
Yeah. So you're running from something. So what are you running towards?
I think being the model father.
And does that have a limit?
No.
Well, business doesn't either.
There's no limit.
Life doesn't either. You know?
Yeah. It's interesting as you talk about other people's standard or expectation, right? Because a lot of us try to do that to prove to other people. The problem is that it's usually lowered, right? It's lower than what you should be holding yourself to. I remember when I was early in my financial planning practice, we had a trainer come into our office, and he was a high producing advisor. And he came into our office to do some training, and our general agent at the time said, "You should come to this office. You're going to be the highest producing. You'd be the highest producing agent in this office." And I remember he looked at him stone cold and said, "I don't want to be the highest producer in this office. I want to be the highest producer, period."
Right.
And that's what happens when we fall prey to comparing ourselves to everybody else. Yeah. Because what we'll inevitably do is surround ourselves with people who aren't as far along the track as we are, so that we can be better than the next guy. I think that goes with thinking big too, is like surrounding yourself with the right people. Yeah. That's why I'm honored to be here with you guys, is because what you're doing within your business, I see that I have aspirational growth for the same things, and I got to put myself in that environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Brian moved here from Ohio.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I grew up in the state of Maine, but everybody said I was crazy when, I went to school, went back to school for business, graduated, had a job lined up for a financial company. It flopped last minute. I was out. I fell back on what I knew, and that was doing concrete. So for 3 years, I started doing concrete. I started a side business, and I was doing those things. And I was actually making pretty good money doing concrete. I'd worked my way up. I was leading a team of finishers. And I had made some smart financial decisions, bought a foreclosed home in the Midwest, which was everywhere, rebuilt it myself. So I was pretty comfortable. And I had just went up to Maine on a break to visit family, and I was training jiu-jitsu, and I sought out the factory very early on when it was very new, and walked in. And the same year, I'm backtracking a bit, but the same year I was graduating from school for business, I had a professor tell me that American manufacturing was dead. And I had another one say, "No, it's cyclical, and don't worry, it'll come back." And I became kind of obsessive with this. And when I found out about Origin, that's what brought me up there, and wanted to train jiu-jitsu, of course. So I walk into the factory, I see the factory, and I see the loom running, weaving fabric. If you don't know anything about looms, not only is it crazy, but you can't just, there's not a lot of places in the United States where you can go in and watch a loom run. I saw this, and it was a moment when I knew, like, two intellectual people that I highly respected a lot. One was right and one was wrong. And that was so motivating for me. I went back to Ohio, and I told my wife, I said, I talked to Pete, and I'm going to quit my job where I make pretty good money.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put gis in my trunk, and I'm going to drive around the country and sell them. And that's how it started.
Yeah.
What was her response to that?
Initially, she was like, "You're crazy." But she knows I have a history of making some pretty crazy ideas. Like I said, I bought a foreclosed home and moved us into it and renovated it at the same time, which was pretty crazy.
But you had that support system.
I did.
Now, what if you went home?
She had my back.
What if you went home and Meg was like, "No, you're not doing that."
Yeah, if she had said something like, "You do that and I'm leaving."
Yeah.
Like,
guess what?
I
probably wouldn't have done it.
Probably wouldn't have done it. Yeah.
And I think that a lot of men run into that, and that has to do with choices too. It has to do with choices. So that support system is important.
But also, what I extract from that story, that she was supportive, and just in your home renovation story there, is that you had proven worthy of following.
Absolutely.
Right, because if you, and I'm sure there's more instances than just the renovation, but if you hadn't have done that and all your track record was sloppy and half-assed and you don't complete things, you don't follow through on things, there's no way she's like, okay, I trust you. I believe in you. It's scary, but let's do it. There's no way you built that before this opportunity presented itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that trust had to be earned from her, and
you built out that emotional equity, that social equity with your partner,
for sure.
And that's real equity. You know, like it doesn't happen overnight. You gotta build that bank account of equity so that you can gain that trust to make a big step like that, a big jump like that. You know, that's important.
Well, what's next for you guys? Thinking big here, talking about thinking big. What are we looking at here? What's next? What can you disclose anyways? I know there's little inner workings that maybe you can't fully disclose with me, but
we're pretty open to a lot of our ideas and pretty bold. And again, the same ideas that we're doing now or that we've done that people said we were absolutely crazy. We'll probably tell you about some of those ideas and people are going to say we're crazy.
For sure.
I told Ryan some of the insider stuff we're doing, like with the documentary and stuff like that. What I would say a little bit we're chasing a ghost, you know, and I know that there's someone chasing us, you know, and I would say metaphorically, we're still running. You know, and when you stop running, you know that you're at a point where you're maybe not in the game anymore. You know, it comes like I'm on the fence of playing in this alumni lacrosse game on Saturday. I'm on the fence about it. I'm balancing. Do I want to go show those kids how, you know, the old man can play, or do I want to save my body a little bit because I haven't sprinted in a long time? You know, I'm thinking about it. And I think when you start thinking about slowing down, I think you start to decide that you've hit your goals. I think that's really a conscious decision. If you're thinking about slowing down, well, okay, you slowed down because you're thinking about it.
Right.
And I'm not even close to thinking about slowing down when it comes to this company. Like I want to sprint faster, go harder, do more. You know, we've got 50 or 60 asses in seats. How about 500, 600? How about 5,000, 6,000? You know, and I like to push, and someone asks me, I'll push the limit on that until that person is like, oh, that's crazy. Oh, good. Okay.
Now I'm there.
Now I'm there. Now I'm there. You know what's funny is as I said that to Kip, and he's like, that's awesome. Kip, for those of you who didn't hear earlier, is the co-founder of Under Armour, Ryan introduced me to. And he was like, yeah, I want to get involved. It didn't faze him one bit.
Oh, dude.
He's like, yeah, let me get involved. Let's do it.
The conversations that we've had, his mentality is another level.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, he's talking like a normal person, I guess you'd say, for lack of a better term. But he's talking about abnormal things and how excited he is about pursuing it and then taking it to the next level and the next level and pushing and push. Like right now, in fact, as of this recording, he's hunting grizzly bears with a bow right now. And he's going to continue to push and push and push. It's crazy. It's
Why
awesome.
stop? Yeah. And, you know, the old saying, you know, the world is your oyster, man. It really is. It really is your oyster. You know, you get inside that thing and figure it out and keep grinding and keep pushing. And when you decide to stop, you stop and you've hit your goals. I just don't freaking see it with us. I don't see the end. I don't see the end. I want to keep grinding, keep building and engineering, you know, and this wave behind us, that's the wave of American reshoring. We haven't even started. We're in one tiny little town in the foothills of Maine's Western Mountains. One little podunk town. We're nothing yet.
But you will be.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
No doubt.
100%. And that may sound arrogant, and I hope it does a little bit. And I hope it sounds a little bit naive, because I think those are awesome tools. Awesome tools to build whatever it is you're building or do whatever it is you're doing. So
how do you balance that with, well, let's talk about arrogance. I don't see it as arrogance. I see it as confidence, and that's been earned through a lot of trial. Mm-hmm. Arrogance, I think, is something different. It's inflated. It's nothing earned. It's not real.
Right.
It's just made up. But how do you balance being confident with being humble and allowing yourself to see that although we want to grow this business to what we want to grow it to, we have to be intelligent about it.
That's
we
right.
have to recognize that there's some blind spots that maybe we're not seeing that arrogance would overlook.
People. It all comes back to the people. The people are the true machine. It's not the physical things, it's the people. And we're continuing to add people that have brain power into the equation to help solve the equation, because we're writing the equation and solving it on the fly constantly. It doesn't stop. And you need more of a brain trust to be able to do that. And I think the humble part comes in and is saying, I need help. Mm-hmm. I need help. Like, we've set this thing in motion. You're not going to stop the train from moving. We need help, fueling the fire and conducting this thing and getting passengers on and hitting the right stops, and not going off the rails.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I saw you do that with with bringing Henry in, for example,
yes.
right? With the boot production.
Yep.
There's probably things that you didn't know what you didn't even know.
And you know what? And we just brought someone else in, Mike. There are things that he knows that Henry doesn't know. Two guys, 80 years of combined experience. 2 guys, 80 years to bring this thing back to life.
Yeah.
People.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think we'll call it a day. I want to let you know, though, I really appreciate you guys. Me and my family wouldn't be out here without you guys and the opportunities that I feel like will present themselves, not just between us, but the family as well, and the things that we're looking forward to. So I really appreciate your big level thinking. I appreciate your friendship, your support. I look to you guys as mentors in a way, and just want to let you know I really appreciate you for that.
Thank you for that, Ryan. Thanks for inviting us back on again.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me crash your studio. Yeah. We're going to do a podcast. We're doing it here.
You can use this studio anytime you want. It's only going to get used 1 hour a week.
Okay. Well,
so
let's make it a couple hours then.
There you go.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right on. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Peace.